Hello there, you beautiful people. Now, in the last video, you learned about the different ways that commands can handle input and output, and I seeded in your mind the concepts behind the most powerful abilities that the Linux operating system can give us: piping and redirection. Now, piping and redirection allow us to create sophisticated command pipelines and move data around our computer system with such unbelievable ease and flexibility that it's basically a superpower. So in this video, you're going to begin gaining superpowers by learning how to perform redirection in Linux, and later on in the next few videos, we'll be covering piping. But by the end of this video, you'll be able to redirect standard input, standard output, and standard error to your heart's content, and you'll feel much more like a computer genius already. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Okay, so our main friend for this video is going to be the cat command that we saw a bit earlier. Now, the cat command is used to concatenate or stick together multiple different files. You'll see how it works in more detail in a later video in the course, but the reason I'm using the cat command in this video is because it's a simple command that reads from standard input and writes to standard output, so it fits our purposes of learning redirection perfectly. So let's watch cat receive data from standard input. So if I just type cat, here, the cat command waits to receive some data on standard input. Now, cat needs standard input in order to run, but because standard input is by default connected to the keyboard, cat just sits there and waits for us to enter something on the keyboard. So if I type meow, like that, once we do, it will output the same input into standard output. And because standard output is by default connected to our terminal, it outputs the same word that we entered, which was meow, which is appropriate for the cat command, of course. It outputs that to the terminal. Now, in order to tell the cat command that standard input has finished, we need to press Control and C, and cat will stop listening, and we will have back control of our terminal, of our shell. Okay, so that's awesome. So what if I wanted to change where the standard output goes instead of having it come to the terminal? In other words, how can I redirect standard output? Well, let's say that I wanted to redirect standard output to a file called Output.txt. To do that, I would use a special symbol. I would write cat, just like normal. Then I would type the number 1 and the greater than sign. And then I'd type Output.txt. Okay, so let me explain to you what this means. I want you to remember that standard output is the name of the stream that output goes down. Okay, standard output isn't the destination, but it's the name of the stream or the pipe or the stream that the data goes down. Now, every data stream not only has a name like standard output, standard input, or standard error, but it also has a number associated with it. Standard input is number 0, standard output is number 1, and standard error is number 2. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're changing the destination of where stream number 1 points. In other words, we are redirecting or changing the destination of standard output because standard output is number 1. So that's why we typed the number 1 and we said put data stream number 1 in output.txt. Okay, so instead of pointing the standard output stream at the terminal, which is where it points by default, we're pointing it towards a file called output.txt in our home folder. Now, when I run that, cat is still waiting for some input to run. So if I type Linux is amazing, okay, and press enter, we notice now that actually it didn't come back out to the terminal. And when I tell cat that standard input is finished, again by pressing Control and C, first thing we notice is that the command is no longer running, and as well, we also don't see any output. But if I click here to navigate to our home folder, so I click Files, and when that window opens up, if I navigate to our home folder, we now see a file called Output.txt. And inside Output.txt, if I open it, we see the text, Linux is amazing. How cool is that? Now, because standard output is usually what you want to redirect, Linux makes it so that you don't actually even need to put the number 1. So if I just get rid of, if I just delete Output.txt, I just press the delete key on my keyboard, you don't actually even need to put the number 1 in this symbol here. So actually, if I just do cat, then the greater than sign and output.txt, okay, and I enter Linux is amazing, okay, and output it, and then I press Control and C to stop the command, you can see that we basically get the same result. Output.txt has been created, and inside there is Linux is amazing. So that's a nice shortcut. You don't have to put the number 1 there, but it's useful to understand that for when you actually come to redirect the other data streams. Now, you might be wondering about the spacing. So let's take the long form again. The long form is cat1 greater than and then output.txt. Okay, but I couldn't add, so I could write it like this. I could get rid of the space there, and that would be fine. But I couldn't add a space between the 1 and the greater than. Okay, so I couldn't like do that, have a space in between there, because this has to be all one symbol. That wouldn't work. Okay, but this would. I could have, I could close the gap there, so this symbol is preserved. But I can have a space after it between that and output.txt. This is fine. This is fine. This is not fine. Okay, does that make sense? But yeah, just remember that the shell is interpreting what we write. The shell is looking for 1 greater than or just greater than as a symbol, and it has to find that symbol in order to understand what it wants us to do. So if we break up 1 greater than with a space, now it no longer works because the shell isn't looking for that. Okay, awesome. So let's try adding more text to the file. Let's try and add the text wow, so that it says Linux is amazing and then wow. Okay, so if we do that and we type wow, and then press Ctrl-C to stop. Now, when we check the output.txt file, we expect it to say Linux is amazing, wow, right? But when we open it, it just says the word wow. What happened to the text that says Linux is amazing? Well, redirection by default will remove everything in a file before writing to it. The fancy word for that is called truncation. But basically what happened is Linux emptied our file and then wrote wow to it. Well, that's kind of annoying. So how can we write to a file again using redirection without truncating it? Well, to do that, we would write the redirection like this. Okay, so you would write cat 1 greater than output.txt. So you can see we've used 2 arrows there. Okay, so instead of having 1 arrow, we have 2 right after one another. Now, when I type Linux is amazing, okay, and I press Control and C just to end that. Now we look inside output.txt. We now have Linux is amazing after wow. Okay, and again the shortcut still applies. So instead of having cat 1 greater than, by the way, if that shortcut right there, I just press the up arrow key. Instead of having cat 1 greater than, I can just have greater than. Okay, when I do that and I say Linux is very amazing and do that and stop, then when I reload the file, we can see that now it adds Linux is very amazing. Okay, so this works just as well with just the greater than. It works just as well as having the number 1 because Linux makes it just that bit easier for us because usually you're redirecting standard output, which is data stream number 1. So that's how you redirect standard output. And this process, as I said, of using the double arrows is called appending to a file. So in the interest of time, we're going to cut our discussion short in this video and we're going to pick it up again in the next video. But in summary, what you've seen in this video is, first of all, that data streams have numbers associated with them. Data stream number 0 is standard input, data stream number 1 is standard output, and data stream number 2 is standard error. And you can use these numbers to actually access the specific data streams that you want for redirection. Now, in this video, you've seen how to redirect standard output, which is data stream number 1, and it's probably the one that you will be using most of the time. But what you need to make sure of, and this works for all data streams, is you need to be careful of truncating your files. You saw that when you use 1 arrow, when you were redirecting standard output, the shell would delete everything that was in the file or in the place that you were redirecting to before adding the data in. But if you use 2 arrows, then you can actually append your data to the file. You can add your data on top of what is already there. So just be aware of that. So in the next video, we're going to take a look now at how you would redirect standard error and standard input. So I'll see you in the next video.